Hey there, since the end of March, I've been running this channel as a way to memorialize my dead dad, who ended up pulling the ultimate gamer move and died 2 years ago. For the longest time, I've been led to believe that his death was likely intentional. He'd spent the better part of the last 5 years getting back into hard drugs, and so it makes sense that he'd eventually overdose. But recent information I've learned has led me to believe that his death was actually caused by somebody else. That's right, this channel is now host to a murder mystery. I'd like to set the scene a little bit, give some backstory to give context. My old man was born in 1971. He'd have been 54 now if his heart hadn't have failed due to a drug overdose. He raised me since I was a kid. He had convinced his girlfriend at the time to get knocked up by somebody else since he himself couldn't do it, and while she ended up being an awful woman, he himself was overall fairly decent as a parent. Despite being abused himself, growing up, he made sure to raise me as well as he could, being a fairly uneducated working class trans man in rural Michigan for most of his life. One of the things that brought us together, and that we loved the most doing together, was playing video games, either as the other watched or playing them together. It's because of this that I went into analyzing video games that he didn't get to play or that we both liked. My work on this channel has been to raise awareness and advocate for transmasculine individuals, since we live in a world where most people either don't know about what it means to be that, or they just outright hate people for that. By providing entertainment to people, and by helping explain things to them, I hope to endear them to the plight of those born into the wrong bodies. For decades he lived as a man. From what I remember and what was told, he transitioned while in high school, socially at least. Medically that came later, but he began doing so in the 90s, a more rough time for trans people to get what they needed. But he did it. He lived his life and was one of the bravest people I've ever known. To be surrounded by people that either just didn't give a shit about him or hated him for who he was, it was a tough life. Before I was born, he swore off hard drugs. He'd been using them since his teen years helped deal with those hardships, but he stopped smoking speed and doing other such things for a long time. My birth giver refused to do so, which led to them breaking up, though that was also because she cheated on him with a bunch of random dudes, so yeah, that'll do it. He went on to live for many years after that without getting back into the heavy drug use, but due to injuries he was addicted to stuff like morphine since this was the peak of the opioid epidemic, and his doctors decided that the best thing to do was to get him hooked on oxy and other such things. It wouldn't be until around 2020 or so that he'd gotten back into doing hard drugs, illegal drugs, having been convinced to use Adderall to help keep him awake while doing his night job of driving around and delivering things. By 2022, I wasn't speaking to him anymore since he'd gotten hooked on cocaine again from one of his new friends. I saw what he was becoming. He owed me thousands of dollars by that point. I stopped talking to him just as I did to my birth giver back in 2010 or so. She herself died in 2016, a drug-induced heart attack. So I just assumed the same when I had heard what happened, intentional or otherwise. But things were getting suspicious over time, in addition to everybody involved fucking up in one way or another. The funeral home is where it all started. My grandparents, who abused or neglected my old man when he was young, allowed me to sign for things since for all intents and purposes I was his kid. He had my initials tattooed on his neck. He's the reason I was even born. My grandpa held me right after I was born. In fact, I think besides my birth giver, he was I guess whoever reached in and helped pull me out was the second person technically, but he was the first person besides my birth giver to do the whole classic baby holding maneuver. But then the funeral home did the obituary and just really messed that up. Worst of both worlds. Used his dead name and used male pronouns. Dead name being the name that they were given at birth, so what some might have called his girl name, So that already was not great. What was worse was when we got the ashes, which a friend's mother paid for because I've been keeping her son alive since roughly 2011. So in exchange for, keeping her son alive, she covered the expenses of the cremation and all that. But Grandma decided that since I was going to abide by my dead father's wishes, which in the state of Michigan don't actually matter according to the rule of law, his wishes being that his remains were not be given to his abuser, she decided that I was no longer her grandchild. She had written up by the funeral home in a very legally threatening piece of paper that I still have. And it declared that I was legally not his child. And I guess, on a technicality, legally, I wasn't. Despite having his last name and being raised by his family. Because I was never officially adopted. This all started a standoff where I refused to budge since I'd run out of parents to lose and a bipolar bitch wanted her way while her pussy-ass husband refused to tell her no at any point in her life. Eventually, the chief of police was called on me, an agreement had to be made so that I didn't go to jail. Or prison. I can't remember what the sentence would have been. But I had to give up half the ashes. So I had to go and buy yet another urn, because I myself bought the first urn. The urn you'll see in the beginning of the video is the original urn that I bought. I bought a perfect replica, and I had to re-pour a chunk of my dead dad into the matching urn. And in the process, I ended up breathing chunks of his dead body, which is just an experience that most people will never experience, and that's just wild that I had to do that. At that point, I didn't feel much of anything anymore. It took a while before I had some semblance of self again. One of the reasons it's taken me so long to get this channel going. I was pretty much on autopilot for over a year. The thing that stuck in my mind, though, amongst everything else, was the death certificate. It stated that the cause of death was unknown, essentially, that they couldn't determine it. But it was plain as day from the symptoms and such, the things that led to the death, that it was a drug-induced heart attack. No tox screen was done. My grandparents didn't push for it because they didn't want to admit that he was a drug addict. And that also leads us to the people that I fully hold responsible for the death of my father. There were two people directly tied to his death. One of them, the guy that got him back on coke, and the other, some drug dealer that's sitting in prison and facing decades of her life behind bars. The woman sitting in prison was found not far from where he began to die, since he was brought to the hospital where his death was declared. She was found in an abandoned building. Not sure if it's one of the dens she set up for distribution, but it is funny to learn that operating a drug den is in fact an actual specific crime that's listable. I think it was 2 years for operating such a thing in the news report that I found. I'd give specific details like some channels do, but because I'm personally attached to these events and I don't want to dox myself, since the people it's a murder, right? My old man was basically murdered. I don't want the people to find out that I'm going after them ahead of time. Right, or anything else, right? I don't want people on the internet finding out who I am. I hope you get that I can't really show off these specific details. And it's also, I haven't been able to look at pictures of him in a while. But the dude that got him back on coke and drove him further into a horrid life that left him weighing less than 100 pounds by the time he died, he's still out there, and from all accounts, he's a right cunt. He threatened the woman that helped take care of my old man's dogs after he died, nearly killing 2 or 3 of the puppies himself. I want to see him brought to justice. I want to see him behind bars. The best way for me to do this is to get him arrested on a drug charge, most likely. That'd be the easiest way to do it. That drug dealer that's facing 30-odd years, she was likely caught because of my old man's phone being in police custody still. I'm wondering why this guy wasn't nabbed, though. He may have provided testimony or something, in which case I'm very much not satisfied with him getting away with this for just turning in one of his friends. Which is why I kind of want to set him up to face the same thing, find out who his associates are, pay one off to report to the cops enough info to get the guy arrested. Druggies like them generally aren't loyal. A few grand or so would keep them hooked up for months on end. I mean, maybe, off chance, not likely, they'll clean themselves up, but that's more of a sociological issue that I'm both not equipped for, and I just don't give a fuck, really. These fucking people. Fuck them all. These fucking... I had to watch them slowly deteriorate over years because of these people. In the end, I feel compelled to do something. And this is the most legal and most healthy way to do it, I think. We all grew up watching movies or playing games where a person in my situation might do something far more drastic and getting you put in prison sort of stuff. Meanwhile, I've got shit I need to do. I need to keep up my advocacy work. I can't really keep people alive if I'm... Well, I guess I could do it behind bars, but at that point, my life wouldn't be worth living. So without risking identifying myself, since given the nature of what I'm doing, I don't want to risk potential backlash from locals, to this end, I ask that if you can, please support me by sharing this video. And if possible, please contribute to the GoFundMe that'll be listed in the description of this video. Or join my Patreon, which will be located there as well. I'll likely also have a pinned comment or something of that nature. The money I raise will go towards my living costs and that of starting this investigation, which I'll be updating people via this channel, as well as my usual content. In that, I'll keep posting the monthly big analysis videos. The next one up actually has the most characters I've ever covered, 13 of them in fact. The money's gonna go towards, just the cost of living and all that. I don't need a whole lot. I plan on starting a podcast soon as well. That might be the best way for me to do updates. Probably one a month. Along with usual content of talking about gaming and other such things. Maybe an episode, maybe a video covering my initial thoughts on a game or something. These are the kind of things I wanted to do with him back in the day, but he never really got the point of it or understood what I wanted to do. The world is not an overly kind place for anybody. You're more likely to end up like him than you are to end up like as a millionaire. Hell, you're more likely to end up like him than you are to fully own your own home, especially these days. Drugs are a way for people to avoid the harshness of reality. And unfortunately, getting back into them was what led to him dying. I don't know why they killed him. They had the means and opportunity, but I want the motive as well. He knew he was going to die soon. He told that girl that helped his dogs that for days ahead of time that something was going to happen to him. Never said what it was exactly, though. Maybe to keep her safe or something. I wish none of this went the way that it did. I wish that I still had my dad. And that I could hug him again. But I can't. I'll keep putting up videos, keep entertaining people, for as long as I can. If I can get funded, things will go more smoothly. I won't have to stress as much. If not, I may need to slow down, but I'll never stop loving my dad, and trying to see that his murderers face justice. And as always, please, stay safe, stay strong, and remember that trans rights are human rights.